I can make a scaled bar graph with several categories to represent data. A bar graph displays data using bars to represent the numbers. This is very similar to the Lesson 1 learning target using a picture graph. If you've not watched that video, go back and watch Lesson 1 and then come watch Lesson 2. Alright, the first thing you need to start out with is data. So again, favorite ice cream was a survey question asked that gave us some data. 25 people said vanilla, 30 people said strawberry, 50 people said chocolate, and 42 people said other. So they picked a different flavor. Now, when we make a bar graph, just like a picture graph, you had to choose a symbol and how much that symbol would represent. We picked a smiley face to represent 2 people. Well, with numbers this big, like 25, 30, and 50, you don't want an interval, a smiley face to represent 2 people, because your bar graph would be so huge when you're making it. The bar graph is going to have these bars inside. You have to choose an interval, which is similar to choosing that picture. I noticed that 50 is my highest number, and that 2 of the numbers are counting by tens, like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. 42 is pretty close to 40, so that's close to an even 10, and 25 is right between. So I'm picking the interval of 10 because it'll fit my data the best. You're very rarely going to have an interval that fits your data perfectly, so I didn't want to give you an example where that happened. Now let me go on again with interval, and what do I mean by that? When you make a bar graph, there are specific parts. One part is the title, which I haven't put on here. It would be called favorite ice cream. And that usually goes somewhere near the top. But the interval is over here on this side, or the side where your bars rise up to. You got to pick how much each little mark is going to represent. I picked an interval of 10, so I start at 0 and then count by tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Now with vanilla, there was 25 people. So when I make that bar, I go up to between 20 and 30 and try to go right in the middle, and I make my bar there. One helpful strategy when you make a bar graph is just to write the number at the top of your bar, and that way whoever's looking at it will know for certain what you meant. Now also when you're reading one, sometimes people don't put that there. They want to know that you understand, oh, it's right between 20 and 30, it should be 25. Strawberry was easy because it went right to 30, so you'd go to 30, right there, you line it up, and you draw your bar. Chocolate was at 50. Notice how I took my interval and went all the way to 60. It was pointless to go far beyond 50. 50 was my highest number. If I took this and went up to 100, I'd have a big gap at the top that wouldn't be used. So just stop your interval after whatever your highest number is. In this case, it was 50, so I would stop it a little bit after I went up to 60. I could have stopped at 50 if I wanted, but I decided to put a little bit of space at the top. And then other was 42. When you have your data, I labeled all of these with 42, 50, 30, and 25 because 42 was not even right on an interval. So if you look, the 40 comes across and it's a little bit below, but I thought if someone was looking at this and I didn't have it labeled, they might think that the data for other was exactly 40. So I labeled them all just so it kind of looks good. And they know that this was actually 42, and they can interpret the data for whatever purpose they have. Another tip when you're making a bar graph is kind of on the bottom scale, you have them labeled, but use different colors for your bars so you can kind of see the data a little bit better. You can see, wow, a lot of people picked chocolate and other, and not as many picked vanilla. So if you were maybe planning an ice cream party, you'd know I need to have a lot more chocolate than I do vanilla because more people like chocolate. I can make a scaled bar graph with several categories to represent data. So here's some data talking about favorite color. Red, blue, and green. 10 people picked red, 5 people picked blue, and 15 people picked green. Now, if I were to make a bar graph for this, what would be a good interval for this graph? You know, counting by 2s, counting by 5s, counting by 1s, counting by 10s. What would be a good interval for the bar graph, and why? Now remember, there's no one right answer for your interval. Whatever you pick for this, your why is going to be what makes it correct. So make sure you explain yourself.